This is Face the State with Dennis House, Connecticut's most watched local political program.
Good morning. It's been about a week and change since Governor Malloy unveiled his budget, a budget he explained in detail here on Face the State last Sunday. Some are greeting the budget with applause, others trepidation and criticism. With us today with opposing views, State Representatives Sean Williams, Republican of Watertown, and Matt Ritter, Democrat of Hartford. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Dennis.
And I'll hit you first, Representative Williams, because Governor Malloy had the last word on the budget. What do you think of the governor's new spending plan?
Well, look, I mean, in the 10 years that I've been in the legislature, I'm not sure that I've seen a plan that is as gimmicky as this plan. You know, he sticks to the company line, and he's really good at that. He says it doesn't raise taxes, but it does. He says it doesn't borrow to pay operating expenses, but it does. It's a very gimmicky plan. It's not good for taxpayers. It does all the things that he has said that it does not. It's going to be a hard-fought battle, I think, in the coming weeks and months, because the governor proposes a budget, but, you know, Basic Civics tells us that we, the legislature, have the opportunity to kick it around and amend it and debate it and change it. And I have a great level of confidence that it will. What the final product will look like, I don't know, but it can't go through the way that it is.
In your words, what's the biggest gimmick?
Well, he's trying to borrow $750 million to pay for something very complex called generally accepted accounting principles, which I applaud him for bringing us towards this new system of accounting so that we're not doing many of the gimmicks that we've done over the years. But he's essentially, in my opinion, borrowing to pay operating expenses. And I think what he's trying to do is to increase our state's cash pool so that we look like we're in a better financial position than we actually are. We're highly rated by Moody's and other organizations as one of the worst states, worst financially managed states in the country. And I think just borrowing $750 million to inflate that cash pool just makes us even worse.
Representative Ritter, does it make sense to borrow to spend?
Yeah, so, I mean, first of all, one thing I want to say is you're right, and Representative Williams is right, that we'll get together and we're going to take a look at the budget, and the governor comes out with his first draft, and even our screening now under Speaker Sharkey is now all bipartisan. So it's not like Washington, D.C. We will get together, we will work on some things in a bipartisan fashion. But talking about the governor's budget, a lot of things that he's done, and we talk about GAP, which was something that had been talked about for years. That's one thing that the rating agencies wanted, and no governor is willing to do it. And it does cost money to do it. Now, the fact that we're going to borrow some money to help pay for the cost that GAP would cost, it's not the worst time to borrow money. It's the cheapest you can borrow money in recent memory. And as long as you're managing your debt in a way that is not exceeding certain limits, as long as you're managing that cash flow and that debt balance, borrowing money is a part of the general fund or the general budget, always has been. And the way the governor's looking at borrowing money is not putting us out of line with any of the other governors or past administrations in terms of the annual debt service schedule.
Is it discouraging to be a Democrat in the General Assembly right now and hear all these reports that say we're last in this and last in this and last in this category?
Well, I'm trying to be an optimistic person, but also the question is you can take your reality where you are and you can feel bad for yourself, or you can try to fight your way out of that and try to move forward. And I think one thing that the governor and the General Assembly have tried to do in the last 2 years, we've tried to make job creation a goal of this administration, the goal of the General Assembly and the Democratic legislature. And you have to move forward with big ideas and big proposals. And we're not always going to agree on those, but I think we feel that standing still has happened too long. And so UConn is, $1.5 billion for UConn. That's bold. It's a big initiative. But you know what? You have to think big sometimes to have big things happen in the state of Connecticut.
The one thing that came out of that budget that really resonates with voters is the car tax, because no one likes writing that check, particularly if you live in Waterbury and it's double what you pay in Watertown and double in West Hartford, rather in Hartford than you pay in Hartford. This was proposed by Governor Rell years ago. What's different this time around?
Well, what's different this time around is that the governor has proposed to eliminate the car tax, which is a laudable goal, but unfortunately he's not figuring out a way to reimburse the cities for that lost revenue, which means that you are undoubtedly going to see a property tax increase if this plan was to go through the way that the governor has proposed it. As I recall, Governor Rell proposed some financing mechanisms to get money back to cities and towns to cover that lost revenue, which I think was the right way to go about doing it. But cities and towns are going to take a huge hit, and that means that taxpayers are going to take a huge hit as well.
Representative Ritter, your mayor's not happy about it.
Yeah, we're going to have to look at it because, as Representative Williams alluded to, I think we all agree it's a very regressive tax, and there really is no reason why a Honda Civic in Stamford is different than a Honda Civic in Watertown or Hartford. It should probably be a flat fee. The question is getting rid of it entirely, or is there sort of a statewide mill rate that we could adopt that provides some revenue to municipalities? That'll be up for discussion, obviously.
What do you think the final solution will be?
I think I don't know. I mean, I think that there's definitely a feeling that you have to find a way to give municipalities this lost revenue, or the ability to make up for it, or at least give them a little more time to adjust. So I think we'll find a balance around there, and go from there.
I do agree that I don't think this will ever go through the legislature because you have suburban and urban legislators who think it's a terrible idea to take this money away from cities and towns. The problem is that's not the only hit that cities and towns are taking. There's a variety of other mandates that are going to continue to be in effect without any relief, and there's a variety of other mechanisms that the governor has used to take money away from cities and towns. He's proposed, for example, eliminating the state pilot program, the payment in lieu of taxes for state buildings, and moving that over, I shouldn't say eliminating it, but moving it over to the education side of the budget. Mayors who are trying to finance municipal government, the municipal government side, the plows, the public works, police, fire, etc., are now going to lose that money to the education side, which is a huge hit to them, and it's another thing I've heard from many of my friends who are mayors throughout the state.
Let's talk about gun control. Connecticut already has pretty tough gun control legislation in place, laws in place. They want to make it tougher. What do you think the end result will be? What do you think will happen?
And I'm not on that gun safety task force. I'm not sure if Representative Williams is, but I can tell you what I believe will happen and what I hope happens. I think that the idea that assault weapons, particularly the type that were used in Newtown, I don't see why anyone has to own those in the state of Connecticut. I think the high ammunition magazines, I think that stuff should be on the table. And I'd like to think that we're going to make everyone register every gun. If I have to register my dog at Town Hall every spring, we should be able to register every gun that gets purchased in the state of Connecticut.
We ran a report on Eyewitness News this week. The woman at Chuck E. Cheese who apparently opened her gun and put a bullet in the chamber was turned down for a gun permit in her town because they said that I believe she had some mental health issues. She went to the state gun appeal board. I'm not sure I have the exact name of that, and they decided to give her a gun permit. How does this happen?
Well, look, there's a whole variety of things, including background checks, in addition to some of the things that Representative Ritter talked about that I think will be on the table. Here's my biggest fear, though. My biggest fear is that we, as a legislature, will take the path of least resistance, the easiest thing to do, which is some of the gun control measures, not really resolve all the problems, pat ourselves in the back and send out our mailers and go home. I think the cruelest thing we can do is give people the appearance of safety. So I think we have to be really thoughtful about it. That means that the pro-Second Amendment people have to come to the table, and the people who want to completely restrict and regulate guns have to come to the table, and that's on both sides. I've told every gun pro-Second Amendment person that's come and seen me the same story. That if you just fold your arms and you say no to everything, it's not going to fly in the legislature, and you're going to get rolled. So I think that the good news is the bipartisan task force is truly bipartisan. Yeah. There are equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats on this committee, meaning that nothing's going to get done without minority Republican votes. I think that's a good thing, and I credit Speaker Sharkey, I credit the governor with putting his task force together. I think there is a true bipartisan effort. I hope we do something, but I hope we do the right thing.
Let's talk about right to work. The state of Michigan, where you spend a good deal of your time for business, has recently gone, this is a big union state that went right to work because they want to attract new companies. We asked the governor about it. He says that he's against it. Some Republicans, I believe it was State Senator John McKinney, said that he'd like to have a hearing on that. How do you feel about that?
I would be against that proposal as well. And I think that obviously you've seen the studies, and the union workforce in Connecticut now is hovering around 15%. Obviously it used to be higher, but I believe that Michigan law is going to decimate unions in the state of Michigan, and I don't know that's a good thing overall. There's a role to be played, and I think that unions play an important role in our state and our country's history.
Unions do play a role, and I think that people should be able to join unions of their own volition, but not be compelled to join unions, not be compelled to pay union dues. Just like any other product or service that somebody provides to somebody else, they should have to make their case to their customers. In this case, the customers are the workers, and I think they should have to make that case. Today, the laws are very much stacked against those people who don't want to organize. I think I would disagree. I do think in Michigan it's going to have a huge impact on their economy. I think that you're going to see businesses who see that burden to entry go away, and I think it's going to be a good thing for them.
And you'd like to see it here?
I do.
All right, State Representative Shaw Williams and State Representative Matt Ritter. Take a look, folks. This could be a future race. Governor's race 2020, you never know. Gentlemen, thank you for being on the program.
It would be the nicest race ever.
It would be very cordial. That's right.
It would be.
That's right.